The next step to making your dance music composition after you've added your bass line and your drum beat is to add in a chord part, which is going to increase the interest in your piece, but also allow us to make a breakdown section a bit later. So we're going to add a new track by pressing add track. We're again going to use the instrument section on the left hand side, and we're going to choose a synthesizer part. If your instrument panel doesn't come up straight away, do press instrument at the bottom, and then you'll see again that keyboard that we can click on to play, and again it maps it out onto the computer keyboard just like before, so that if you are at home you can play the piano keyboard with your computer keyboard, but if you're at school and you've got access to a computer keyboard plugged into your computer, you can use that as well. Now we're going to look for a synthesizer sound, but we're going to look for a particular type of synthesizer called a pad. Pads are kind of washy, spacey sounds which provide a lot of atmosphere to your piece and work really well in a breakdown section. So I'm going to choose synth pads. Now there's lots of different synth pads. I don't want this one to be really low. My bass is really low, but I also don't want it to be really high. I want it to be somewhere in the middle. So round about octave 2 or 3 can sound quite like in the middle. I'm going to choose octave 3. And then when you hold a key, you'll hear what the instrument sounds like. This one's called Atlantis Pad. As you scroll through the different versions of the pads, you'll hear they all sound a little bit different. All with a different sound to them. But they're all this quite sort of spacey and washy sounding. I'm going to choose one of those, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a simple chord part into my song. Now dance music tends to have really simple use of harmony or use of chords, so with that in mind we really only need to make a part with one held chord. You can make it more exciting, and you can come up with a pattern of 2 chords that repeat, or even a pattern of 4 chords that could work really well, but it can also work even with just the 1 chord. So I'm going to choose a chord. Now if you try a chord of C major, which is C, E and G, then it can sound really bright and happy sounding. If you choose a chord of A minor, which is A, C and E, then it can sound a little bit darker, depending on how we want your song to sound. If you've used a blues scale, good ones to go for is actually just holding just the C and G together, which can make a nice kind of open sound for the backing of your piece. I'm going to go for this one here. I'm going to go for the A minor chord, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try playing it over my track to see what it sounds like. Let's press play. There you go, I think that could work. I just turned the volume down because it was a little bit loud, and I think that could work quite well. It's just a held chord. Now it's not going to be there in the whole piece, but appearing at certain points, particularly at the breakdown section, it could give a good bit of atmosphere to my piece. So I'm going to press record now, and I'm going to record myself just playing that one chord. Here we go. There we go, and I held it down for quite a long time actually. I held it down for a full 4 bars. It's always good to do things in multiples of 2 and 4 in music. It always sounds very musical. So I held it down for a good 4 bars, but I finished at the end here. What I'm not going to do is have my loop be a little bit longer than that. I'm not going to have it going over the edge, so it's sort of landing in the middle of the 2 numbers. I'm going to make sure it always starts and ends on the grid line on the numbers that you can see at the top. That will always make it sound really musical. Now I can loop it by going to the top right hand corner, and I've now got, if I set my volumes correctly, a nice combination between the pad sound and my bass line. As a final thing, you'll probably want to quantize your part, so double click on it, and again quantize just means getting your instrument part perfectly in time with the rest of your track. So I'm going to click and drag to select my notes, then on the left hand side here press quantize. If it still feels a little bit off, you can always choose a lower rate of quantize, like 1/8 or 1/4 for this track would sound fine. But ultimately press quantize and then press play and see what it sounds like. There we go, and that's adding in your chord part. As an extension, you might want to add in a second chord part with a different held chord. You might also want to try doing a pattern of chords. Rather than just a one held chord like I did, you could do a sequence of chords. So for example, a C chord to an F chord to an A chord to a G chord perhaps, and that could play over the top of your bass line. Experiment with what chords sound good, and also experiment, again back to the instrument section here, with the different pad sounds to see what kind of pad works best with your track.